guys their secrets and what they're doing. One of the things I just want to say quickly, it was really fascinating to me as I introduce everyone that everyone had something unique. Like at all different production levels, at all different experience levels, everyone had something that they did the same. And that is really cultivate their sphere of influence. So I want to talk about that today specifically. We're going to spend a lot of time on that because so many agents have said to me, I don't have a sphere of influence, right? How do I build it? I don't have one. So we're going to really deep dive into that today. So let me first introduce our panel. We're going to start with Angelina Carew.
Hello.
Hello, Angelina.
Hello, Tiffany.
I was really impressed with Angelina's story when you and I sat down together right out here. You told me how many years you've been in real estate, and then you said what your production level was. And I was blown away because you didn't have a sphere of influence really here. And we're going to talk about that as well, how you built that. But for you being in the industry for 2 years and able to do what you've done with your business is really remarkable. So I'm excited for you to tell your story. We also have the amazing Jordan Lee here with us today. And I knew as soon as we put this event together, I knew I wanted to reach out to Jordan because I've been wanting to talk to him about his business for years now, so this gave me the opportunity to do that. And I want to brag on him for a second. Jordan Lee was just on the cover of Triangle Real Producers. Super badass. Super awesome, cool guy. And not only is he building this huge real estate empire, guys, he's also a musician, a singer, he plays the guitar, and I've heard him play, and he is fantastic. And also has a beautiful daughter, Addison. So thank you for being here with us today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. And then we have Samantha Gradle. Welcome, Samantha, to the panel today. Now, Samantha's been in real estate for right over a year now. What I love about her story is she started part-time in real estate. And quickly, due to some unforeseen circumstances, had to generate her business like crazily full-time quickly because some things happened and she just had to really make it work in real estate. And boy, has she. What she's done at such a young age, and this goes to show you with effort and just putting in hard work, it doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter how old you are, it really doesn't matter. Because if you were just to look at Samantha and say, oh, I'm in my 20s, I've never been in real estate before, this is my first year, you would think she was really going to struggle. And she has hit the ground running. I'm so proud of what she's done in the year, like right over a year that she's been in real estate, and I'm excited for her to share her story today. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and so many times you think that you've got so much to learn from people who have been in the business for like 10 plus years. And don't get me wrong, they have a lot to offer, but oftentimes it's the people who have been in the business, the first couple of years that have really exploded their business. You've got a lot to learn from, fresh perspective. You haven't been in the business as long. So keep an open mind with our panel today. And I want to take this opportunity to go through each of you guys and talk about your backgrounds and so the audience can get to know you a little bit better. Talk about how you got started in real estate and just a little bit about yourself. Angelina, we'll start with you.
Okay. Do you guys want me to use the microphone? I know we said that earlier.
It's up to you, how comfortable you are. Just speak loudly if you don't use it. Yeah.
I don't even know if I can turn it on. Is it working? Is it working?
No. I don't think
Oh, here. Is it working now?
That's better, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And I actually am excited to hear your stories too, because it's always really interesting to me how most real estate agents are coming to real estate from some other career or some other walk of life, and so it's really neat to hear what you've done before that. And so me personally, I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and when I graduated college with a biology degree, I started working at a pharmaceutical company right away. But I also bought some rental properties, I flipped a few properties, and I was just 23, 24 years old. And back then, in 2004, 2005, mortgage rules were a little bit lax, and, I just wasn't afraid to get, I wasn't afraid of the felony of mortgage fraud, and I just kind of bought all these houses with no money down, and it was a great time. Well, of course, in 2008, you know what happened then, and Milwaukee was hit particularly hard at that time, worse than it was here. And my husband and I actually got transferred with our pharmaceutical company to Clayton, North Carolina in 2008. And also, unfortunately, I ended up losing the properties that I did have in Wisconsin. It was a hard time. So I kind of put all of that in the past. I was like, I guess I'm not going to be a real estate, mogul anymore. So I actually did own and operate a full-service salon in Fuquay Marina, and that was in 2009. At that time, it was the only nice salon that Fuquay had. Now there's a few, but at that time, we were the only one. It was called Salon Bliss, and it's still there today. It's called Love is in the Hair. And we went from basically nothing to having about 10 employees and over 1,000 clients on the books. Our salon did about $500,000 in sales a year. We were really proud of ourselves because I was working still full-time at the pharmaceutical company, but I was on a 12-hour shift, so I worked every couple days, and so then on my days off, I was at the salon. And so I worked 80 hours a week and really burned myself out. I really let my health slide. And something happened at that time that made me realize that I needed to stop putting myself last. And because if you're not healthy, then you're not any good to anyone. So I started working on my health and fitness and really realized that I developed a strong passion for it. And because it was motivational to other people to do the same thing, I actually ended up quitting my full-time job. I sold out of the salon and I became a full-time CrossFit trainer, a personal trainer, and also a nutrition coach. And I was really serious about it. I was trying to be an Instagram model and all this stuff, getting sponsored by different supplement companies. I did a bodybuilding show. I mean, I went all out. But that industry is very stressful. It's very difficult to do that to your body all the time, and the training you have to do, and you don't make a lot of money. I found out. I thought that it was so glamorous, but you really don't make a lot of money. I ended up with hundreds of clients, but it didn't pay well. So I found a part-time job on Craigslist, and it was my now partner, Vanita Ford, who has been in the business in the Triangle for 20 years. She was needing someone to do weekly inspections of her HUD listings. And so it was just an easy part-time job I could do, in between my training and stuff. So I said, okay, let me do that. Well, Vanita and I really developed an awesome friendship and a great working relationship during the time that I worked for her at doing that job. And so in the summer of 2016, she asked me if I had ever considered a career in real estate before. And my initial reaction was, no, I'm a fitness model. I'm not changing careers again. I just don't really have an interest in that. But then I thought, what am I saying? I'm broke. I hate this diet that I'm on. What am I doing to myself? And plus, to have the opportunity to be on her team and learn from her, I just thought I'd be crazy. And then I really did start to remember I did used to love real estate, and it used to be something I was really interested in. So anyway, I went to school. I ended up getting, I went ahead and just became a full broker right away. And so in October of 2016, I started working in her office at Fomble Morrissey. And then later that month, she left the company to start her own firm. So I stayed with Leah at Fomble Morrissey and actually went on to not only join the gold team in my first year, I sold $5.8 million that first year without Vanita's help. I mean, I did it on my own and with Leah's help, of course. And I also was the top listings agent of the office that year, and I was very happy. So then in February of this year, Vanita called me literally out of the blue and asked me if I would consider coming back to work with her as her partner and start a new firm. And I wouldn't have never considered doing something like that at this point in my career or ever really, but something told me I couldn't pass it up. So in February of this year, we started Ford Carew Realty, and it's been awesome. Our office is in Garner, and it's been, I haven't looked back, so that's me. Thank you.
Because at the YPN event a couple of weeks ago, I looked at Angelina's arms. I was like, man, she's got some guns. So whatever you did, I reach out to you. So.
I'm Jordan Lee. My story is a little different. Despite only being 37 years old, I've actually spent 14 years of my life selling real estate. I started my career first day out of college. I actually had my real estate license before I had my marketing degree. I had a 2-year stint at Fomble Morrissey. I actually grew up around that company. My mother has sold for more than 3 decades in the Chapel Hill and Durham market pretty heavily. In my career, I spent 10 years running a family shop called the Lead Through Team. About 2 years ago, I began working on the next phase of my career, which has been a new company that we launched last year called Nest Realty. I've done about 650 transactions and more than $150 million in sales over the last 14 years. In terms of my practices and what kind of sets me apart is I'm a very unique blend of old school and new school in terms of how I approach the industry. I'm very big, and we'll talk more about this in detail, but I'm very big on, utilizing technology to work smarter, not harder, but at the same time, I'm always about the relationship, which has always been my driving force behind how I've built my career. Got a 3.5 little girl that and there's a lot of people in this room who are friends with me on Facebook. You can see my Facebook is pretty much me. My Facebook is 3 things: my daughter, real estate, and Carolina athletics. So, but yeah, looking forward to being here.
And Addison's such a cutie too. I love your little post.
I'm Samantha Gradle, and I accidentally got into real estate. My family's business growing up was running karaoke, so I was destined to run karaoke for the rest of my life and continue that on.
So this microphone feels natural.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm going to break out the song in a minute.
I'm gonna start singing here, it'll be great. No, I'm kidding. So I did that for a little bit, and then went to college, went to school for English and film, realized that the English factory was not hiring. Started working at a startup called Filter Easy in Raleigh, which was fantastic. I decided I wanted to buy some rental properties and decided to get my real estate license. Then some weird twist of events, my job was really okay with me getting my real estate license until day one when I started selling real estate, and then they made me kind of choose between a career in real estate or a career with them, so I said, let's do real estate. And ever since then, I've been full-time.
Woohoo! Take that push to get you in the right direction. It's painful during the process, but always the reward is great. So, well, let's take a deep dive into what I had mentioned earlier about building your sphere of influence. Talk to us about, and this question can go to anyone. In fact, I'd love for all of you guys to answer it. Talk to us about how you built your sphere of influence. I know some of you didn't have one already when you moved into the area, so let's just get started with that.
Oh, sorry.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So, and to kind of tie back to that, Tiffany was saying that a lot of people say that I don't have a sphere of influence, and I noticed he goes wrong, on his sheet, and I had that thing, if you don't think that you have a sphere of influence, it's because you don't have the right mindset about the people that you know, and you're not doing anything to actively maintain an influence over them. So that's really what it's all about. For me, and the reason I wanted to tell you all of the things that I've done in the past is so that you'll understand why when I opened up my real estate store in 2016, the referrals and the business just started pouring in. It's because of all the work I had done over the previous 10 years building my sphere of influence and trying to do a good job of building my brand as a person that's hardworking, dedicated, I'm trustworthy, people like me. I mean, they identify with me and they feel comfortable with me. So when I went into real estate, it was just a natural. All of my friends already knew. I was brand new, I didn't know what I was doing, but it didn't matter to them because they knew I could do it. And so what I did was, when I started the salon in 2009, I didn't have Facebook at that time, and one of my friends was like, you don't have a Facebook account? And I was like, wow. So I started the Facebook account strictly for marketing my salon. And so I know that a lot of people use Facebook for their personal use, and they're like, oh, my kid's on there, and I don't really want the world to see that and everything, but I don't have kids, so I just really, everything that I do on Facebook is always with marketing myself in mind, but not in a pushy way, but just getting people to know me. So I post about my dogs, or I post about drinking wine, or I post about my workouts, or what I ate at the sushi bar, because that's what my friends want to see. And then I'll throw in there what else I'm doing with my business, and I don't ever just go out there and be like, I need 5 listings this month, who needs to sell their house? But I'll say, oh, I just had a listing presentation this weekend and it went awesome. I'll let you know if I got it, or one of my listings went under contract or something, and I just say what I'm doing, and then that gets me connected with real estate in people's minds. So anyway, to build a sphere though, every time I met someone, I would try to get their contact information, and then I would also friend them on Facebook. So now years later, I have 2,000 friends. I don't know who a lot of those people are anymore, but they've all been watching me all of this time. Even if they don't like your posts, or even if they don't, interact with you really on a daily basis, they're still seeing it. And so if you're meeting people, if you go to the gym and you just put your earphones in and go on the treadmill and you don't talk to anybody, you're missing an opportunity to meet a lot of people at the places that you go every day. And even in this room, unfortunately, some of us won't be in real estate in the next year, the next 2 years, next 3 years. So get connected, and then maybe you can get some referrals from them later on. You never know. It's an easy way to just ask someone when you strike up a conversation with them. Ask them, "Oh, do you have a business card?" Most people don't have a business card, but then you can say, "Oh, well, here's mine," and let's connect on Facebook right away. And then that way you've got them, and then we can talk more about how to cultivate that.
Sure. To piggyback on what Angie said, my very first note on here is wrong. Very few people are truly on an island. It is 100% about your mindset. Not so much about how other people view you, it's about how you view yourself. In this industry, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. The best people in this industry, I've coached, I've trained, I've hired, I've fired, are the people who are comfortable on their edges and who are okay having their limitations pushed. So it is completely about your self-perception, not how other people perceive you.
Amen.
Yeah, there
That's
you go.
spot on, yes.
So you have to look. Granted, if you just if you're fresh off the boat from Manhattan and you literally don't have a single friend, okay, I'll give those people the benefit of the doubt. But very few people are truly an island. It's very easy to get intimidated, especially when you're a newer, younger agent. And I say this with great experience. I had my very first transaction at 22 years old. My very first client was more than triple my age. And he looked at me and he said, "Young man, what do you have to offer me that so-and-so agent doesn't have?" And I was going up against a very experienced, very well-known agent for the listing. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I have time. You're my only client. And I got the listing. And this other agent had 20 active listings. I said, "Who do you think you're going to get more attention and focus and detail from?" And he bought it. It was great bullshit. For not knowing anything about real estate and not having had no experience, it was very, very good. But it's 100% about confidence and not letting yourself be intimidated, thinking that, okay, I'm going into an industry that is so saturated because everyone out there and their grandmother thinks they know something about real estate because they watch so-and-so TV show on HGTV. That has nothing to do with how the industry actually works. So you need to be able to look and play to your strengths, and I'll talk a lot about playing to your strengths throughout this panel, but look where you're naturally connected. Look at the people in your lives who you go to, "Hey, let's grab a beer," or something like that. And it is baffling if you actually start tracking it in your career, how many connections you can make even from just 1 click, 2 clicks away. It's not 6 degrees of separation, it's like 2.25 degrees of separation. But it's 100% about mindset and being present in your relationships, and we'll go into that.
I love what you said about mindset and how you perceive yourself, because that is so important. So many times I've heard agents say, "Well, I don't want to bother anybody. I can't call them because, I just called last week and I'm bothering them." And the reality is, it doesn't matter. You guys, seriously, when it comes to, we're going to talk a lot about, calling people here in just a second, going through your sphere of influence and making these calls. Make calls every single day. Jordan will talk about this in a second, but one of the things he said to me was, even if I don't have a reason to call, I still call and just be like, "Hey, how's it going?" So make these calls, because it is not about how you perceive yourself when you're on the other end of the phone. It's about adding value to that client, switching that mindset, which plays right into what Jordan was saying. So thank you, Sam.
It's funny that you mentioned the 6 degrees of separation, because I look at real estate as the 6 degrees of who's about to pay my next bill. Because it's true, everybody knows somebody who's going to buy or sell a house in the next year. And if you have those conversations and meet these people, you're going to eventually get to that person. So even if you are from a different state and don't have a sphere of influence around here, several of my clients have been from out of state, people I didn't even know because I was referred to them by somebody else who I did know. So just keeping those relationships that you have really strong, realizing that, hey, if you are from Manhattan or somewhere else that there's a big group of people moving down to North Carolina from, keep in contact with those people, because chances are they know somebody moving to North Carolina too. So really build those relationships and talk to those people.
And I would say one
The key with open houses is, number one, you have to remember the goal. The public views open houses as, okay, well, my realtor's gonna hold my house open, so maybe he'll sell it doing it that way. Open houses serve little to no benefit to the seller. The point of holding an open house is to try to capture a potential buyer who doesn't yet have representation. But it is a great way, it's a little bit high pressure because you as the agent, you have to be very likable and very personable without being too pushy at the same time. And that's a very hard line to learn how to walk. And I've failed at it a lot more than I have succeeded at it, and that's okay. But the key for running an effective open house is you have to be disciplined about it. Don't sit there on the seller's Wi-Fi working at your laptop just waving at people as they walk and say, oh, come and have a look around. You're wasting your time if you're doing that. You need to be at the door. You do not let anyone in before you get their name, their phone number, their email address. And you have to be direct, but not to sales meeting when you ask for it. Then in terms of your follow-up, when I do an open house, and yes, even despite my 650 plus sales, I still do open houses because I get leads from them. You have to be systemized in terms of how you follow up. And if you wait 48 hours to follow up with somebody after an open house, you've lost them. I have a templated email that I send out that day thanking everyone for coming to the open house and saying, I realize that probably wasn't the house for you, but I would love to help you find a house, and then I throw some other incentives at them. But in terms of open houses, yeah, they are still really effective tools.
Yeah. And what you said about following up is key, because if you do not follow up right after with some sort of value that day, absolutely, and make make notes. I made notes on every single person who came to the open house, because you may think that you're going to remember, but I promise you, in a couple of hours, you're like, who's that girl again, Sarah? Make notes on who is coming into the open house, and like Jordan said, follow up immediately. And here's the thing, if they don't answer right away, they may not be ready yet. I think the biggest point, Jordan, what you said was, with following up, if they don't answer right away, continue to put them, and we'll talk about your systems in a minute, but continue to put them in that funnel of calls that you make, however many times a week. So that's so important.
Yep.
Anything else you guys wanted to say about before we switch gears? About open housing?
One thing that we've done that has worked really well is, just like he was saying, try to get their contact information. But I have found, for me, if you use, this was a tip I got from a friend of mine in Wisconsin. She had this really simple survey put together with questions. What was your favorite thing about the house? What was your least favorite thing about the house? Are you working with an agent? What is your email address? Do you mind if I contact you? Are you pre-approved? Just a couple of little things about them, but how do you think the price of the house is? And so then I usually wait until they have gone through the house and they're kind of getting ready to finish, and then I'll ask them, well, how did it go? I mean, what did you think? And then I'll say, would you mind just filling out this quick survey? The seller would just love to have your feedback. And I don't think I've ever had anyone refuse to fill out the survey. And they may not fill out every single spot, but then I'll take it back to them and look at it really quick. And if there is any information that they didn't put that I really wanted, like their name or something, or if they're working with the agent, then I'll ask them that. And that has been a great icebreaker way for us to get the information, just telling them that it's feedback for the seller, really. So, but you're 100% right too. The open house is for you. It's for you to market yourself to those people, not really to sell that house.
And just to add to what you're saying, that's so true. It is to market yourselves. And also, you can hold an open house just for sellers in the neighborhood about an hour prior to the actual open house. So that's just something creative that you can do. You could go door knock the neighborhood and just say, hey, I'm doing a quick preview just for people in this neighborhood who own properties. And I'm also going to cover what the price points are in this area if you're interested. If I'm a homeowner and I'm not in the real estate industry, you best believe I'm going to be at that house, first of all, because I want to see what my neighbors are doing and be nosy. But secondly, how is this impacting my home value? So it's all about how am I adding value. You guys make some really good points. So if you're not doing open houses, be sure to do open houses. Add that into your business plan. Add that into your daily practice and figure out how many open houses you want to do that next month and actually do them. Now switching gears to also building your sphere of influence, let's talk about farming for a second. Who wants to start off just talking about which areas you farm and anything creative you'd like to add?
Yeah. So I always start with your neighborhood because you know it better than anybody else. I was really depressed a couple weeks ago. There was an open door listing that popped up in my neighborhood, and I was like, it is time to narrow down on this farming. Start with the places that you know, the places that you grew up if you are local. Friends' neighborhoods, parents' neighborhoods, just go for those places because those are the ones that you're going to be the expert on. And it also helps if you do decide to go door knocking in those neighborhoods. You can go and say, hey, I'm familiar with this area, I've lived in this area, I know where the nearest Starbucks is, and people really are impressed by that, and they're less likely to close the door in your face.
Gotcha. I'm not the best person to speak on this. Geographically, I don't farm relationally, but.
Yeah.
I actually haven't done farming either, so I'm impressed that you have, but it's something that I have an interest in, and I do intend to do that in the future. And one of the things that I just wanted to say is, now that you've got all of their contact information, they're in your sphere of influence if you continually influence them. And just, if you're not familiar with how to farm, I know how to farm, I just haven't done it, but you have to come up with a plan for the year of all of the things you're gonna send them all year long so that you're staying top of mind. Because if you just send them one or two pieces, it's not gonna make the impact that you're wanting.
Yeah.
It could be a whole year's worth of things that you're sending before you get a client, but that one client would pay for the entire campaign that you did that whole year.
Bingo.
One more thing with that too. Like she said, be very consistent with the farming, but also realize that, I in my mailbox yesterday had like 3 flyers from other realtors sending stuff to me, and they're getting the same thing, so make sure your stuff is different. I always like to do handwritten letters. If I'm bored, like especially when I was first starting out and I had nothing to do, handwritten letters all the way, like write the envelope out. I know it takes a lot of time, but they're gonna see that and they're gonna open it. It's not just a flyer with your face saying, oh, I'll sell your house, and people are more likely to call you on that. I've had better luck with that than anything.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much time.
No, it's not too much time.
And I love what you're saying because so many people just starting out in real estate, or even it doesn't matter how long you've been in real estate, the fun stuff about real estate is working on your marketing, right? That's fun. Looking at logos, colors, doing all the things that don't generate income. So what I love about what you're saying, it's true, and that's where most of us fall short, right? It's really recognizing, okay, how long have I been working on this marketing plan? It really isn't doing anything for my bottom line. But using your time wisely, as Sam was saying, I love what you said about if you're bored, you're generating income by farming a neighborhood. And I really wanted to talk about farming a neighborhood today too, because I was listening to the podcast this morning, and that's one of my daily habits that I do every single morning is listen to a podcast, whether it be real estate related or whatever, just to lift myself up for the day. And I got some really good tidbits from this lady who was very new to real estate, just moved to this area, and she talked about how she got started in real estate. And one of her main things, aside from open houses, was farming her neighborhood. And she did really cool stuff, not just sending, a flyer, hey, look at me, let me know if you want to know your home value. It's good to send those, and like Angelina was saying, you plan that, if you plan your year out, maybe once a quarter, send your flyer. But this lady would actually go door to door and do things for the kids in the neighborhood. Like she would host movie nights. One of the things she did at Easter, so these would all be themed events, I thought this was brilliant, is she left a note on the door that said, you've been egged. And she said, if anyone you know is hunting for a house, let me know. And she hid eggs in the front of the yard for the kids and the side, just 12 eggs. And when the kids got home, they were able to go and find the eggs. She left her information, and she said she got tagged so many times on Instagram, Facebook, as just saying thank you. For doing that. Now, granted, she knew these people, of course, in building that sphere of influence. I don't recommend anybody just randomly go to Daria. So let me just preface this by saying that. But she, it's going that step above just sending that flyer. So really think about what is it that you can do in your neighborhood or your farm that's going to separate you from everyone else who's just sending mailers. It doesn't have to be an Easter egg hunt, but looking at, sparklers for July 4th. Doing something fun. I know that I used to work with a guy who really heavily farmed Haddon Hall, and every July 4th, he and his kids and wife would go and put American flags in everybody's yard, like right beside the mailbox. And I thought it was just something different, something unique to you. So just think about what differentiates you and do that. So that's why I wanted to talk about farming today, because a lot of people are not consistent with farming because you think it's an instant payoff. That's what you want, that instant gratification. I'm the same way, but just keep doing it. So great point, Sam and Angelina. Thank you. So once we built our sphere of influence, how do you continue to cultivate your sphere? What are your daily practices, and how do you ask for referrals without seeming, too aggressive?
Get it, yes.
Okay, by a show of hands here, who has an annual marketing plan that consists of every marketing activity they're gonna do a year in advance? One. That's usually about right. But hey, you know, at least you write it down, so that's a huge step. You have to plan in advance. If you do not plan for it, it will not happen, and you're gonna give yourself excuses not to do things. I'm great at my job, not because I have some guru high-level knowledge of the housing market. There's plenty of people who do what we do for a living who know more about the market than I do. I'm good at managing my clients' expectations, and I'm good at planning what I'm going to do in advance, and I try to not let myself off the hook with it. You need to have a full 12 months of every marketing activity that you are going to do, and it needs to play to your strengths. The quick and dirty of my marketing plan, I have about 300 people in my sphere. These are people who, if I call them and I picked up the phone, I could talk to them and they would talk to me. Every 6 to 7 weeks, they're going to get something in the mail from me. Once a quarter, they're all going to get a phone call from me, and they're going to see me twice a year. That's kind of my standard. That's what I do to build my business, and every year in advance, I plan when is every mailing item going out, what is that mailing item going to consist of. When they get every person gets 4 phone calls a year, so once every 3 months they get a phone call from me. What are we going to talk about? What are we going to go through? And then 2 client events a year. I just did one at the grand opening of my new office in West Cary on Friday. I had 500 people show up, invite kids, invite neighbors, and just open it up to the community as well. But I plan all of this in advance. You have to be intentional about growing your business. And I guarantee you, any agent who I talk to, who I've coached in the past, who is struggling, I ask them the very first thing is, how many phone calls are you making a week? It's always 0. It's always the same answer. I'm asking questions I know the answer to. But you have to be present in your relationships, and you have to constantly be adding value to the people's lives around you, not just when it's time for them to buy or sell. The most meaningful interaction you're going to have from them is not just when it's time for you to get paid on a commission. It's being present in those relationships and being the go-to resource for example, and you can't just always ask for referrals. There's a time and a place, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. After Hurricane Florence, I sat down with my assistant. I said, okay, this is a major event. We have the chance to be there for our clients. We have 300 phone calls to make in the next 5 days, and we did. And we called every single person in my sphere to check on them. Hey, how's your house? Is there roof damage? Do you have trees down? Is there water in the crawl space? Do you need a contractor? We're sitting there on the phone just dialing with our Bluetooths in for hours on end, just adding value to people's lives. But in addition to that, again, you have to have an annual marketing plan put out there, because if you don't plan for it, it's not going to happen, and you're going to let yourselves off the hook. And instead of taking notes at an event like this, like, oh, that's a good idea, and that's great, take these ideas. I'm getting stuff from what Tiffany's saying. I'm like, that egg thing, I need to do that.